Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are back, y'all. We are back for another Love After Lockup, a Life After Lockup, season 5. And we are on episode 42, y'all. 42. And they title it Save the Drama for Your Mama. Save the Drama for Your Mama. And you know what? It's actually a pretty good title. It's a pretty good title. And, I normally rename my videos, but I kind of want to keep Save the Drama for Your Mama. But I did retitle and just say birth control and the mamas. Birth control and the mothers because it's a lot going on with the mothers. A lot going on with the mothers. But before I get into everything, please don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe because every day or like every other day, I try to drop a new video and I typically include in the community chat what's coming up the next day. So that way, if you want, you can catch a premiere. And when the premiere is happening, you can chat along in the comment section or in the chat section. So just want to welcome everyone who's made it to the chat. Thank y'all for making it. And if you're catching me on the replay, you can still leave a comment down below because we be having some interesting conversations down in the comment section. Like I always tell y'all, it's really one of my favorite things of doing these videos is to chat alongside with you. I just give my opinion. That's all this is my opinion. My opinion ain't always right. It ain't always the only one. Everybody's got different opinions, and that's what it's here for. So I don't want nobody to get their panties too much in a bunch when they watch my videos and thinking they got to agree with me. You ain't got to agree. And you can also state your comment down below without calling me names. It's perfectly okay to disagree with me, y'all. It really is. But you don't have to call me names. So let's keep it polite. And if you're here to talk about the show, that's wonderful. But if you're here just to talk about other people in the chat or other people commenting or anything like that, this is not really the place. Now, that kind of segues me into what's going on in these episodes. This is not the place. My little channel is not the place for all that. This is where we come and have civil discourse, civil conversations. And what's so ironic about this episode, y'all, is that it actually started last season. And I kept saying, how is it that the prisoners have more conflict resolution skills than the people on the outside? And now I already noticed it before we were doing Love Before Lockup or Love During Lockup. I noticed that the prisoners seem more rational, logical minded than the ladies on the outside, the women they were coming to be with, or even the men in some cases. But now I'm finding out that the prisoners were even more logical than the mamas. What's going on with the mamas, y'all? What's going on with the mamas? I mean, a lot of these mamas act like these men are their boyfriends. And these new girlfriends or these new wives have to compete with the mamas. It's so strange. I think a lot more work has to be looked into, say, the brokenness of some of our families, whether it's black families or families, period. And I know that we often talk about, at least in the black community, we talk about our broken families because of the lack of fathers, and that fathers have left the homes with the children. But what my question is now is in watching this show, and I'm going to limit it to the show. Okay, I'm not going to start talking about the world because every situation is different. But I'm going to look at this show and I'm going to look at some of these mothers and I'm going to say to myself, is the real reason that these men went astray in terms of they got into prison life or things that went wrong, is it all because of the lack of fathers? Or could there also be something going on with the women, the mothers? Do mothers contribute at all? When families fall apart, I've always believed it's two people. When marriages fall apart, relationships fall apart, it's always the two adults in the relationship that could have done something differently. And what I'm wondering is that when the fathers left these families in some of these situations and these boys were raised by themselves or with their mothers, when the mothers had to raise them, the question I kind of want to know is, Is it all the father's fault, or is there some correlation between who the mothers are, which helps contribute to the father leaving, and vice versa? Because, I have this thing, y'all know I'm an engineer. So oftentimes when we have problems we're trying to solve and we don't really know what the problem is, how did we get here? We do something called sometimes process of elimination, eliminating those items so we can slowly get to the root cause. Let's eliminate this because we know that's not the problem. And eventually what will happen is we'll discover that something's the problem. Sometimes people do it in their diet or when they have allergies, right? I don't know what's breaking me out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly start removing certain things I eat. Once I see my allergies go down, I'll know, when I eliminated dairy, all of a sudden my rash went away, my eczema went away. So I think I'm allergic to dairy. Now, you could go get tested, but sometimes that's how people solve problems. And we do that even in the scientific world. And what I'm wondering in some of these families is we have eliminated people from these men's lives. We've eliminated, in some cases, the fathers, but yet we're still left here with a not ideal situation. So is that all the problem? Is it all the problem? And sometimes I think these mothers are in over their head raising some of these kids by themselves. And there's got to be another solution because we are losing a lot of people, a lot of black men to the prison system. And I think we got to figure out individually as mothers and fathers, as women and men, how are we coming together or not coming together to raise some of these children so that maybe they can have a bit more guidance. I know I'm all off track. I know I am all off track, but I just started to think about it because this episode really focused on the drama of the mamas. And it's really not this show. We've been seeing a lot of it in a lot of the reality TV shows we've been watching recently. I don't know, is there a theme out here, y'all, recently about mother wounds? Is that what's going on? Are we out of the phase where we completely blame men all the time? And now we're starting to venture over to, I don't know if you call it exposing or highlighting a lot of these out of control mothers and how they too might be affecting their children. I have no idea. But first off, let's get going. That was a long introduction. I just wanted to let y'all know that's on my mind. I don't have no solutions. I don't have no answers. It's just on my mind. And it came to my mind when we're watching this Teenie and Rob thing. So let's get in. Let's watch Teenie and Rob. So last week, they had a big brawl, a really big brawl. And there was a lot of going on. Folks was falling on the floor. Bodies was flying. Now, it looks like, now that I rewatch it, this episode, it looks like Teenie was the first person to smush the mother in her first face. Not only did Teenie circle back and kind of lean into the mama and say, what's wrong with you? Now, we all know that the mother was provoking Teenie. We absolutely know that the mother is not innocent. She was provoking Teenie, and Teenie's had enough. And I understand that part too. Teenie has had enough. So she turns around in her anger and says, what's wrong with you? What problem do you have with me? And then she leans in and she smushes the mother's face. And that's when everything breaks out. That's when everything really starts to break out.
Do that. Bye. Have a good day. Why would you do that?
Hey, what is your problem with me? It ain't no damn problem.
So Rob is screaming and yelling and telling them it's over. It's over. He's trying to break these women up like a brawl in the prison system. And the mama's yelling, F you Teenie, you be. And she's yelling at the son and telling the son, you can have her. You can have her. Honestly, y'all, this sounds like a fight between two women fighting over their lover being Rob. The words that are coming out of the mother's mouth saying you can have her. And then later on, she actually tells in the fight, what she's saying is, you stole my son from me. And then later on, she actually tells in the fight, what she's saying is, you stole my son from me. You stole my son, almost like you stole my man. You came in and stole my man, because I'm still kind of wondering why, just because Rob has a family with Teenie, and just because Rob is supporting Teenie and her kids, because they are her children, they're not his biological, why does that equate to that she stole her son? It almost sounds like, you was my man. You was my man, Rob. You was paying my bills. This other girl came in and now you're paying her bills, but you're not paying my bills, as she storms out of the parking lot with that dent in her car. Rob was right when he said he feels torn, like he's being torn. He is absolutely right. And he's also right when he says a lot of it's about money. And really, a lot of it is about money. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't really know why that mother feels that she has a right to have Rob still support her in her grown adult stage. Now, I know this is a tricky subject for a lot of women with their sons. I know it's a tricky subject because a lot of mothers, we think, well, we raised our children. We did. We raised our children, and hopefully you raised them to become independent by the time they were of a certain age. Rob is now 36 years old, which means that mama hasn't raised Rob for 36 years. That mama more than likely only raised Rob up into a certain amount of time, maybe 18 years, which we know he went to prison in 18. So now we're going to talk about how good of a raising she did. But let's just say she raised him up till he was 18 years. He's now 36 years old. So whenever I see people struggling with trying to get a little distance between them and their mother, and they're also feeling a little bit of obligation to their mother, I say, how many years did your mother put into raising you, supporting you financially? Sometimes you'll say, well, my mother pretty much raised me until I was 21 years old, 22. They did this, they did that. But then you'll find some people who sometimes are 60 years old who are swallowing themselves because they're also trying to support a family and their mother and someone else. And I always say that if you can provide for your mother, or you can provide for your father or whomever else, I think that's very, very good. If you've been blessed in life to be able to do that. But a lot of cases, that's not the truth for most people. They can't really afford to. And even when they've done a lot for their parents, some parents feel obligated that you owe me even more. And what Rob was saying was, my mother almost feel like because she raised me for 18 years, now I have to raise her the rest of her life, her rest of her 40-something years. So here I am, 36. I've already been providing for my mother for these last 18 years, just like she provided for me. But my mother wants me to do even more time, spend another 20, 30 years doing it. When do your kids stop owing you? Is it forever? Is it a forever debt that your kids continually to owe to take care of people? Or should we as parents make sure that we're able to take care of ourselves? If our children can help us, that's fine. But if they can't, should we make our children feel obligated to provide for us and support us? And then when our children get mates, then tell those mates that you stole my son from me. I don't know, y'all. This is just so weird. And I think Teenie has a point that when Rob was in prison for 18 years, that mother never came and visited him. Never came and visited him. It was Teenie and her children who were going there every week to visit him. And I understand that Teenie doesn't work. I understand that. And that's the life that Rob agreed to. Okay. And now all of a sudden the mother is calling Teenie money hungry because Teenie is a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. But really, what is the mother asking for? She's kind of asking for the same deal. It's almost as if the mother is mad that the deal Teenie has, because it's really the deal she wants. She would love to have a man in her life that paid all her bills so she could stay home. And so what she's mad at Teenie is about is, my son is providing for you what I really want my son to provide for me. That ain't right, y'all. That ain't right. Now, whether or not Teenie's going to have to go back to work anytime soon, that's up to Teenie and Rob, because she's already said, they've already talked about that Rob is struggling to keep up with this money issue since he's out of prison. We finally figured out how Rob was making all this money. I was wondering, how could Rob pay for Teenie and her kids to live and pay all the bills when he was in prison. Supposedly he had a business. That was the thing that was providing all this money. We come to find out now that Rob was gambling in prison. Who knew that there was a whole economic system in prison like this? I knew that, people got things contraband that came in and all this. But Rob was saying that the gambling in prison made him a lot of money. We also heard that last season from True. He was also a gambler in prison. So this is how these prisoners are making money, gambling. So when the outside people are sending people in prison money, are they sending them money so they can use that money to gamble and turn that money and make even more money? Is this what's going on in prison? Wow, I had no idea, y'all. I had no idea. But let me tell you, Teenie is a stay-at-home mom, and it has paid off. It has paid off. Different from over here, the other woman who's a stay-at-home mom. We're going to get to her later on. But Teenie is a stay-at-home mom. You can see how it paid off for those kids. Those kids are fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And the emotional intelligence of these children is phenomenal. That daughter, the way the daughter calmed down Teenie, and even Teenie said, no one could have brought me down from that except my daughter. Rob couldn't have done it. My own mother couldn't have done it. She said it was her daughter, Cayenne, I believe her name is the one that brought me down, Cheyenne. And that daughter's emotional intelligence and that son's emotional intelligence is just off the chart. I'm just so impressed with her children. And that mama talking about Teenie and her fat A and that H and, here my son is taking care of her and all this other kind of stuff. That daughter is now saying, I don't know if I can look at her as a grandmother anymore, the way she jumped on my mother. Now, like I said, I kind of rolled it back a little bit, and I did see that it was Teenie who she was the first person to put hands on that mama. But I feel as if this was a long time coming. And Teenie does need to take some responsibility because Rob was trying to tell Teenie, listen, I don't even know how to look at you no more over what you did to my mama. It's not that he doesn't know his mama's got his issues, but Teenie, you went too far. You put your hands on my mama and you shouldn't have done that. And what I didn't like about Teenie in this episode was she didn't take responsibility for that. She tried to act like the mama did it first, but that's not what I saw. That's not what I saw. I saw that Teenie was the first person to actually take it to a physical level. At first, it was just a war of words. And I'm not saying words aren't harmful. They are very, very harmful. But the escalation to the physical part, Teenie did initiate that. And Rob is sitting over here saying, I can't look at you the same way. This was supposed to be a celebration, my homecoming party. And this didn't turn it to be about nothing about me. It turned to be about you two fighting. And Rob also said, where are all these people around me? This is my homecoming party. Nobody came. But people were always willing to ask something of me. You see, how did Rob get in prison in the first place? When he was running the streets and he was doing illegal stuff, was he doing that to supply money to people who were always in his pockets? Is that what got him in prison in the first place? Running the streets, trying to make fast money so he could support a bunch of people. Then when he got in prison, those people still wanted to be supported in prison, so he started gambling. And then once he got with Teenie and all of his money started going to Teenie instead, now all these people are mad. They won't even come to his homecoming party because they're basically saying, well, you're not doing nothing for me no more. You're not sending me no more money, so why should I come to your homegoing party? It's sad. I feel sorry for Rob too, because I think what he's starting to realize is, what are these relationships about? Are all my relationships built on not a strong foundation? Are they all built on whether or not I can give you money? Because what he's hearing his mama say is, you can have her. You can have her. If you want to give her your money, then you don't need me in your life anymore. I'm going to go away. Because the only reason I'm here is to get something from you. And the minute you stop giving me something, then I don't need to be your mama no more. I tell you, it's sad. It's a sad case. Teenie running around talking about, she done broke a nail. She said, I'm tired. I'm on my period and I done broke 2 nails. And Rob is like, yeah, and y'all done broke my diamond chain, gold chain, or whatever he had on. What a mess. What a complete mess. But I think these two are up for a change because Teenie's going to the water park. She's buying season passes for $250 for a family of 4. And to be honest with you, Teenie ain't got no job. But in terms of a cheap way to keep your kids entertained for the whole summer. And you can get a whole year long pass for $250 for a family of 4 to go to the water park. That's probably a cheap way out, because let me tell you, everything else is so expensive. Now, I don't know how much food is. Maybe you got to pack your lunch when you go. But $250 for a whole summer of fun for a family of 4, that ain't a bad price, Teenie. That ain't a bad price. But she feeling a little bit bad because she know money's tight. And this job that Rob got on the outside of auditing, safety, and all that, he ain't bringing in the money like he used to. And so, I don't know, Teenie might have to go get a job, at least part-time. I'm starting to believe that Teenie's probably going to have to start bringing in a little bit of money. Her kids are old enough to go to school all day. And she might need to go out and get a job part-time, because I'm not for sure if Rob is going to be able to provide, keep providing at this standard of living. And they have a nice life. They do. They're not living extravagantly, but they have a nice life. I thought he had a business. I hope he's able to get his business going so that it can work out, because I think Teenie being home with these kids has really paid off. Like I'm telling you, these kids are fabulous, absolutely fabulous. But I'm with the little boy when he says, you know what, things happen in families, things go wrong, things go awry. But you know what, there doesn't need to be any violence, and we should all be able to talk it out. We should not have to sit here and resort to all this physical violence. And like Cayenne said, I shouldn't have to see my mama fighting like that. And Rob shouldn't have to see his mama on the ground either. I don't know if it's going to work out. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to work out. In a lot of ways, I don't see it working out, because I think where the mother is right now, she's jealous of Teenie, as if Teenie is like a female, just a regular old woman that stole her man. And until she gets rid of this idea that Rob should be providing for her and not his family, I don't know if she's ever going to be able to get to where they need to be. I really don't know if they're going to be able to get to where they need to be. Now, talking about another mother who I feel also has these same weird vibes, like her son is her man, was the whole thing going on with Melissa and Louie. This is a new couple. We had not met them on the episodes. Some of y'all who've been following this series for a long time, maybe you know Melissa, maybe you know Louie. I don't know them because, like I said, this last season was the first season I started watching Love After Lockup. So some of these new couples are from previous seasons that I didn't watch. So I really don't have no background on Melissa and Louie. I'm going to need y'all to catch me up on it. But Melissa's a postal worker. Louie's a 43. He's now a chef and a personal trainer. And he was in prison for 10 years for armed robbery and aggravated assault. And hearing Louie's story getting out of prison also talks to me about how we need prison reform. You know, what he talks about is he came out of prison. He wants to do the right thing. He did 10 years in prison. He served his time. The question is, when does society let him re-enter society as a real whole and free man, right? When does his prison record stop counting against him so that he can actually fully re-enter society? Like, when does he get his voting rights back? When is he able to get a job without having this time he served in prison still on his record? You know, all of us make mistakes and do things wrong. Should there be a time when you've done your time in prison, 10 years, where now that should get wiped from your record because you've now demonstrated you now are a reformed person? You've done 10 years in prison. Let's say you've been out of prison for X amount of time. Should that felony still stay on your record for the rest of your life? Or should there be a time when the felony should roll off? Or does it already happen? Am I just not knowing how this all works? Because I do feel sorry for a person who served time in prison. They paid their debt to society. They're paying off their cash thing, but yet it's still on their record. Now, are there certain crimes where I think it shouldn't come off? Probably. I think things like molestation and stuff like that, I don't know. Like I said, I think some of that should stay on when you do those type of crimes. But this one here, I don't know if it should, because when you have a person say like Louie, he's really trying to integrate to society, but like he said, the minute you do a background check, he's not able to get a job. I think it perpetuates and creates a cycle of going back to prison, because you've almost limited how the prisoner can start earning money again. It kind of like in some ways I could see how it could maybe start to steer that person back to a life of crime, unfortunately. But he's out. He's working in a pizza shop, and he's got with this woman Melissa. They moved to New Jersey, and I guess maybe before in the old episodes, the mother didn't want him to move to New Jersey. So now that he's here in New Jersey, he talks to his mother. He tells his mother, "Hey, I'm going to be proposing to Melissa. I'm going to buy her a ring." Now, Melissa wanting a 2-carat diamond ring, that's a bit much. That's a bit much when you're dating a man that works for a pizza shop. But she wants it, and it's so weird to hear her conversation when she basically says, when is it going to be her turn, because she's given up so much for him. But like I said, I don't remember, was Melissa dating Louie before he went into prison and she waited for him? Because the way she talks is if you owe me. I waited for you in prison. I'm always waiting for you. When is it going to be my turn? But yet these women willingly started these relationships with some of these prisoners. So it's weird that they feel like the prisoners owe them something, but yet these women went into these agreements willingly. And now she's like, I waited for you to move out of prison. I waited you to move to New Jersey. Now I got to wait on my 2-carat diamond ring. Some of these women are full of control. I don't know if these prisons, they can't win. They're either going to be controlled by their girlfriends or they're going to be controlled by their mamas. Women, are we just controlling or what? What is going on here? But I think asking this man who is just out of prison and has this type of job, asking for 2-carat, $15,000 ring is absurd. I actually think it is absolutely absurd. Now, does it mean I don't think Melissa is good for him? That's not what I think, because I think that she does seem like she's invested in helping him become a better person out of prison, stay on the straight and narrow. I think she's adding to his life, which is why I didn't understand the mama's point of view. Like, what is it about Melissa? Like I said, y'all can educate me on what happened. What is it about Melissa that mama doesn't like? Because even the mama said, well, maybe I just don't know enough about her to like her. What? So you just decide not to like a person in the beginning, then you got to learn enough about them to like them. How about you like them in the beginning? Then if they do anything, then you can decide to not like them. Like I said, these mama got this extra connection to their sons that feels so much like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or an ex-girlfriend relationship. And this mama was like, you know what? If you need me to move to New Jersey for you, I can. What for? Why does he need you in New Jersey? He got a woman. Why do you need to come? It's almost like you chasing your man. Do you want to get back together? Because I know you left me here in New Jersey, but you know, you my boyfriend and everything. And if you want to get back together, I'm willing to move to where you are back in New Jersey. I'm willing to move where you are. So what? You can cause more strife between him and this new woman, Melissa? This is just all so weird, y'all. This mama stuff and mama boys and these weird relationships of mother sons feeling like boyfriends and girlfriends and really having problems with the new girlfriends or the new wives is just weird to me. It's just weird to me, which makes me think, how did we even get here that these mothers had to even raise these sons by themselves? And did some of this stuff with these mothers' psyche manifest earlier in these relationships, which even caused the demise of their own relationships? Is it that these mothers can't have relationships with men, so they decide to foster and have these relationships with their sons? It's weird, y'all. This mama says she feels pushed aside because of the new girl, Melissa. Pushed aside. This is the language she's using. She tries 3 marriages of her own. They all fail. None of them work. Is this her trying to recreate this sort of closeness to a man and as close to a marital relationship as she can with her son, but then it doesn't allow her son to move on and have any type of relationship with another woman with the support of his mother? So he's always got to be in conflict. He's either choosing his wife or his girlfriend, or he's choosing his mother. And if he chooses the girlfriend, he's leaving the mother behind. Is this the kind of guilt some mothers are out here putting on their sons? It's sad to watch, y'all. It is really sad to watch. Now, the last time we saw a mother going crazy with her son was when we saw Karen with Troy and Zeuriah. And Karen ain't on the show no more, at least not now. But Troy and Zeuriah are still having problems because Zeuriah is almost just like Troy's mother. She's super controlling, absolutely super controlling. And she's so manipulative. I mean, the amount of times that Zeuriah gaslights Troy is just out of this world. If we were playing a drinking game and we took a shot every time Zeuriah gaslit Troy or tried to gaslight Troy, we would all be drunk. We would be drunk falling on the floor because this girl, they had this big old blowout fight because Zeuriah has been holding secrets from Troy. And rightfully so, Troy is right. You should have told me sooner that we were this many months behind on rent. Now here you telling me at the 11th hour, where we're probably only a few days away from maybe getting served an eviction notice. And he said, you know what? I try to be overly communicative to my wife, and I think that she needs to do the same with me. And she has not been. And Zeuriah's like, well, what's the problem? That I didn't tell you that our contract money was delayed. Yeah, that's a problem, Zeuriah. You seem to have time to talk about everything else, but you didn't have time to tell me about our financial situation. So Troy gets up, he leaves, he goes out the house, he walks around in the streets with his monitor brinkled on with his pink do-rag and all black. And Zeuriah starts talking about her trust issues. Girl, you just lied to your husband, kept a secret, but now you talking about how you're mad at Troy because he walked out the house, and now it's triggering your own trust issues. Because what Zeuriah is scared about right now when Troy walks out the house is Zeuriah is scared. She's trying to say she's scared about, is he going to go out and do something foolish and commit some crime? But you know what else she's scared about? Who is he going to see right now? Who is he going to talk to? Because I think what Zeuriah is most afraid about is he going to call his ex-wife to be consoled, to talk to? I think that's what she's afraid about. So she keeps talking about she has trust issues. Well, if you have trust issues, why wouldn't you lead the charge in being an honest person? But instead, what Zeuriah likes to do is lie to everybody else, lie about who she is and what she's been doing, cheating on other people, but then talk about her trust issues. How can the woman who cheated on Troy, the woman who's been lying and not giving Troy the full picture, talk about her trust issues? Like I said, she's a hypocrite. She's a gaslighter. She's a whole lot of things. A whole lot of things. So Troy ends up calling his friend Trey. Looks like Trey is the guy he used to run the streets with. But Trey has stuck by his side through prison. They said they talked every single day. He said, man, come through, come pick me up because I'm walking around on these streets of New York, Syracuse, New York, and I really shouldn't be doing that. And he sits down on the park bench and he talks to Trey and says, hey, I don't know. I know how to make money. Right now, I could go back to my thieving, robbing, and stealing and whatever I knew, and I can go out on the streets and I can make $900 real quick. But Trey's like, nah, man, you don't need to do that. It ain't worth it. And it ain't worth it, Troy. It really is not worth it. And I'm glad that he got talked down off that ledge. I'm glad that he talked to someone sensible, which is Trey, and said, that's not the thing you need to do. And Troy keeps using this line like doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. And I think he needs to get rid of that. This idea that you robbing people, putting other people's lives in dangers is the right thing for the wrong reason. Who's it right for? The only person it's right for is you. It ain't right for the person you robbed. It ain't right for the person you committed a crime to. This is the part I don't like about Troy. In some ways, I almost feel like his mindset ain't all the way changed. And what's so interesting about Troy is he tells his story that he was in the streets, but he's not of the streets because that's not really how his parents tried to raise him. Even Mama Karen said that Troy's daddy was like a respectable businessman. I think he was like a newscaster or something. And his daddy was of good means. You know, he was able to provide for Troy and give his money. Troy chose the streets. He didn't need to choose the streets because he was like one of these other kids who didn't have no roof over their head or didn't have no money in their pocket or nothing. He chose that life, not out of necessity because it's what he desired. Because Troy said, well, I wanted my own money. Even though my mama had some money in her pocket, my daddy had some money, I wanted my own. And I only knew one way to get it, which was to rob and steal from people. That's a mindset issue. That's a mindset issue. But the minute he finally comes back the first thing that Zeuriah said is, who did you talk to? You see, that's what her real insecurity was now that Troy stormed out the house, whose arms is he going to run to? Well, you ought to think about that, Zeuriah, when you screaming and yelling. Instead of thinking about whose arms is he going to run to after you've kind of pushed him out the house. In previously episodes, you were saying, get the F out. Maybe you ought to thought to whose arms he's going to run to earlier. But now once he leaves, all of a sudden, all her anxieties coming, all her trust issues are coming up like, well, who's he going to talk to? Whose arms are he going to run to? And then she has the nerve to chastise him and say, is this what you're going to do every time we have a conversation, run out the house? Well, no, my question for you, Zeuriah, is your mouth going to pop off anytime we have an issue we need to deal with? Because your mouth comes first, Zeuriah. Zeuriah want to get on Troy with how he reacts to her mouth, but she don't want to do nothing to control her tongue. She wants to believe that she can sit here and pop off, but Troy got to sit there and listen to it, and he can't walk out the room. Actually, what Troy does when he leaves the room or he leaves the house and he takes a walk, that is conflict resolution. That is what he should do. But what Zeuriah wants him to do is stick in there and yell and scream with her. That's absolutely not what he should be doing. That's an escalation of things. When things are popping off and they're getting heated, leaving the room, taking a walk to calm down, these are very good techniques to calm down and called de-escalation techniques. Zeuriah don't have no de-escalation techniques. And for this woman to have a whole nonprofit called Project Heal, and she don't even have no de-escalation techniques, is an issue. It really is an issue. She like, why didn't you call me? Or why didn't you text me? Why didn't I know where you are? Girl. And she says, it's not always about you, Troy. Well, you sure are making it about you right now. If he's leaving to calm down, then why are you making it about you to call you and text you? Now you done made it about yourself. She is a gaslighter. She can't even see her own ways. Her own ways. Once again, you got a prisoner with better conflict resolutions than the people on the outside, and a woman who says she runs a nonprofit to help prisoners reacclimate themselves to society. Well, how are you helping with a prisoner reacclimating themselves to society and you don't know how to de-escalate arguments? Poor Troy, he got his hands full. And it seemed like we got another mama that's a little bit of hothead. The mother of Kerok. Now, I ain't seen her go off too much because what she was upset about on this episode, I could understand, because Britney and Kerok done decided to move all the way to Texas without doing their homework first. They done booked an apartment, paid a deposit, paid first month's rent, got their whole family to move from Virginia to Texas, and they never got no clearance from the parole board to even to move to Texas. Dumb and dumber. Dumb and dumber. Thank you for everyone dropping in my comments, letting me know the backstory on Britney and Kerok. And the backstory for everyone else who doesn't know is that Britney and Kerok met when they both were serving time in prison. We knew, or they had told me last week, that they both were prisoners. Now, people say, well, how can you serve time in prison together, a woman and a man? Because Kerok was originally born a woman, and he has transitioned to being a man. So Britney and Kerok met in prison while he was transitioning into a man. And so here they are. I wouldn't have even known it, y'all. I wouldn't have even known. I mean, I could tell now that y'all told me, I'm taking a little better extra look at things. And I could see a little bit more of it now. But originally, I would not have never known. But one thing I know about them is they're poor planners together. I don't care what you are, a man or woman, but you poor planners. Everybody else on this show knows to go to talk to their parole officer about even moving in with someone. Let them know, hey, I want to move it. They everybody going to get clearance first. But here you got Britney and Kerok thinking, I'm just going to move all the way to Texas without getting clearance to move to Texas, and it's just going to automatically be approved. Y'all don't think straight. Y'all don't think straight. So am I upset or sad for them that they got to live in this government hotel? No. The hotel looked fine. It looked just fine. I know they said we better check for some bed bugs. You better check for some. You better check for bed bugs. For all this crying and whining, talking about I got PTSD. Brittany talking about she got PTSD from when she used to have to be in seedy motels because she was on drugs. Girl, that's y'all's problem. Y'all should have checked with the parole officer before you did all this. So yeah, they may be talking about that mama is off the chain. Kerok may be afraid to tell his mama, now that the mama's unpacked up everything and she done given up her lease on her house and she's stressed about this move. She could be stressed. She moving a long way away, picking up her life, and they afraid to tell the mama. They afraid to tell the mama. That mama's like, take me off camera. I don't really want to be on camera. But once that mama found out and they told her, listen, we can't go to Texas because we ain't got clearance yet. That mama said, I'm going anyway. That mama said she is leaving Virginia and she's going anyway. And that mama got in that van that she was all packed up and she went on her way. Good for you, mama. Good for you, mama. I'm glad you did it because that mama says, I'm not going to be out here in Virginia and be homeless. That mama must already have her living situation paid for because the apartment I don't think was going to house all of them. The apartment seemed like it was just going to house Britney and Kerok. That mama must have already squared away her own living situation. And that mama said, I'm not losing my deposit. I'm not losing my first month's rent. I'm not going to be out here in Virginia homeless. I'm packing up my stuff and I'm going. And if y'all can get there in a month or two after you get your clearance, then you can get your clearance. I'm with you, mama. I would have kept it pushing and kept it moving it too. And y'all can join me when you can join me. But I wouldn't have been up in no government because the mama can't get no government hotel. The government is giving Kerok, the parolees, a government hotel, and they sit over here whining about it. But the government wasn't going to give that mama no hotel. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? The government giving Kerok and Britney a hotel when they was the one that made the poor decision. But the mama wouldn't have got no government hotel. She would have been homeless. She would have been living in her car. So I'm good for you, mama. Hit the road. Keep going. Because your son got you into this mess. And you don't need to be living on the streets of Virginia. You don't need to be there. Now, the second half of my title of my show was about the mamas. And it was also about this birth control thing. Because, we done talked about the mamas. But we need to start talking about these conversations they've been having with birth control. The more I'm looking at Justine and Michael, the more I'm like, what is going on with Justine? And I still don't know how Michael's going to be able to support this family. I thought he was just a mover, but at least he told us he's a supervisor at a moving company. But I still don't see how a supervisor at a moving company can pay for all these 9 kids with another one on the way. What is it, 8 kids and another one on the way? This is reckless. This is reckless child planning. Planned Parenthood reckless. Planning your parenthood, this is reckless. And they saying, well, so far our blended families are getting along well until we see later on in the episode and the blended families ain't getting along well. But, siblings fight whether they from 2 different households or whether siblings fight anyway. But it ain't going as smooth as they think. And when I started giving kudos to Teenie for being a stay-at-home mom and keeping her family on the straight and narrow, keeping the house peaceful and calm, and have things organized, I can't say the same thing about Justine. Justine don't have no control over her house to be a stay-at-home mom. She don't have no authentic control over her house. And so when you a stay-at-home mom, you supposed to have the house in order. And that way your man can go out and work and make all the money and not have to worry about home. But we got here where Justine is steadily having babies. Her house is in a mess. It's in disarray. And now her husband got to come home from work to handle BS at home. When the truth of the matter is he really don't need to be coming home from work. He don't really need to be missing no paycheck, no hours, no nothing. He needs every bit of money he can get. And you a stay-at-home mama, but you ain't got home taken care of. And then when you guys start having the conversation about birth control, you don't want to go on birth control or no birth control. Listen. I understand the debate between why is it always the woman's job to go on birth control. I understand it. Every couple got to work it out. But Justine, in your situation, you could die from getting pregnant. So in a lot of ways, you sit up here thinking you only doing birth control or getting your tubes tied for Michael so he doesn't have to get a vasectomy. Girl, no, you getting your tubes tied for yourself. Because if you get pregnant again, you could die. At this point in time, Justine, You should be controlling your pregnancies for yourself. You shouldn't even be doing it for Michael. So whether or not he wants to get a vasectomy or not, what you should be saying is, I love my body. I love my life. I want to be here for these kids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do whatever I need to do so that I'm here for these kids and I don't die. And if that means I need to get my tubes tied, I'm going to get my tubes tied. If you don't want to get your tubes tied and you need to go on birth control, you need to do something. Why is Justine making it seem like her getting her tubes tied or going on birth control is all about doing something for Michael? No, girl, this is doing it for yourself. You don't need no more kids. You don't need any more kids. Michael said, I'm team my balls and I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. We could debate all day long about how should couples handle birth control. But when it's a situation whereas you're the one who could die because doctors have already told you that even the pregnancy you're in is very high risk, you should die, telling you get a will. In this situation, it don't even matter what Michael's saying. I would get my tubes tied. I would get on birth control. I would do something because I would not want to die and leave my 8, 9 kids here on earth all by themselves. So Justine is selfish. I said it last week. She was selfish, even having more children. She's selfish. I said it was selfish when she said last week that if it was between her and her kids dying in the birth room, telling her husband to choose the child and not her, I said that was selfish because that means her children have to grow up without a mother. And I said, yeah, you may lose a child, but you dying means you leave 8 other children by themselves. I thought that was selfish. She tried to make as if she was doing something for the child that wouldn't be born, but she was really doing it for herself because she didn't want to live with the pain. And here, once again, she's trying to make it seem like having birth control is about doing something for Michael when, girl, no, it's for you. It's for you. Justine is a hot mess, y'all. She is a hot, hot mess. And she ain't doing so well at being a stay-at-home mom because all this fussing and fighting, she should have been home to referee that. She should have been at home to referee that. If she had errands to run, she should have run her errands when those kids were at school. Why is she running errands and all them kids are at home anyway? She should have run her errands when all them kids were at school, but yet she's still out running the streets doing whatever, and now those kids are at home fussing and fighting. If you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, be a good one. Be a good one. Take care of the house. Make sure it's in order. That house was messy and junky. Them rooms was messy and junky. The house is in disarray. The family's in disarray. She's a horrible stay-at-home mother. I'm not going to say she's a horrible mother, but she's a horrible stay-at-home mother because she ain't taking care of business. She is not taking care of business. And then she run around talking about she don't want to get her tubes tied. Girl. Justine's a hot mess, y'all. She a hot, hot mess. And another birth control issue we got going on is the one between Bianca and Daniel. Daniel, you're going to be a daddy because let me tell you, the way that Bianca says she got baby fever, she going to have a baby. She going to have a baby. And if you're not willing to do what you need to do, Daniel, then you're going to have a baby. Now, here's a completely different situation. You got a girl who's fertile, 23 years old, saying, I don't want to take birth control because actually I do want to have a baby and I want to have one now. And you got a man who says, I don't want to have a birth control. This is where I said, well, Daniel, you better strap up Daniel, you better cover up. You better cover up because she just said to you, she wants a baby. She's got baby fever. You don't want one. So guess what? You got the most to lose. You got the most to lose. He said it would be reckless for us to have a baby in this situation. It sure would be. And it would be reckless of you, Daniel, hearing what a woman just told you to not listen to it. What? All so you can have sex that feels good to you? You better cover up. This is when I say men better cover up. You can't always put it on the woman. When you're the one that has the most to lose, like Daniel was saying, listen, I got the most to you lose. I already got one child I need to pay child support for. I got to pay all this restitution to the government for the crimes I committed. I need to get a job. I need to get my life back together. I need to get back on my feet. Now's not a time for me to have a baby. You right? You saying all the right things, Daniel, but the one thing you're not saying is you're going to wear a condom. That's the thing you're not saying, and that's the thing you need to be saying. Go on down to the drugstore, get you some magnums or whatever else you got to do, and put it on. Because in this particular moment, what she has said is, I'm not going on no birth control because it's not what I want, and I don't want it for my body. There you go. There you go. Now, this method they got of using the plan B, What? You gonna use plan B after every time y'all have sex? What? Is that the way plan B is intended to be used, y'all? After every sexual encounter? I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be used. You know what? Let me look. Can you take plan B after every sexual encounter? What does it say? When to take plan B? Take plan B as soon as possible, ideally within 24 hours and no later than 72 hours after unprotected sex. How often to take it? You should not take plan B more than once at a time or within 5 days of taking another morning after pill. So is this really for people who are only maybe having an oops moment every 5 days? Because it's saying you could take it as much as possible, but it is also saying you should not take plan B more than so maybe one pill at a time, but within 5 days. Taking plan B multiple times does not make it more effective. So you don't need to take more than one. Taking extra doses of plan B actually can cause unpleasant side effects. And alternatives would be condoms, IUDs, pills, patches, shots are more effective and affordable and a more convenient plan B. Long-term effects, plan B and other emergency contraceptives do not have a long-term effect if you use them multiple times. However, the Office of Women's Health advises not using the morning after pill as a regular form of birth control. I don't think plan B was meant to use every time you have sex. And they're living together, which means they could be having sex multiple times a day, every day, whatever the case may be. And I don't think plan B is meant to be used this way. So this plan that they got is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And she said she got baby fever. And she said she really wants a baby back. She already lost a baby when she was younger, 21. She's 23. And let me tell you, when a woman has baby fever and they want a baby, a man better listen. He better listen. He better listen hard. Because if you put all the work on her to do all the birth control, more than likely you're going to end up with a baby. You're going to end up with a baby. So in this particular case, if Daniel don't want to have a baby, then he needs to cover up. He needs to cover up. In this particular case, he needs to step up and cover up, or he needs to stop sleeping with Bianca. One of the two. One of the two.